Hello everybody and welcome to another episode of Gear Talk, and this time I'm going to talk to you about another Hasselblad, the 500 ELM. Before we begin, as usual, a little message to promote myself. If you enjoy the video, please put a like, subscribe to the channel and share it with your friends. If you want to receive my weekly newsletter, just go on my website www.barbano.com and register for the newsletter. If you want to go a step further, check out my books. There's the link down in the description, and you can go from a very nice novel that have very good reviews on Amazon, These Lasting Photographs, a very nice read, to some manuals as the photography, the F manuals, or inkjet fine art printing, that is always the same series of the F manual, and you know what the F stands for. The Hasselblad EL series is a motorized version of the normal Hasselblad. In the case of the EL, that was the first one, came out in '65, was the motorized version of the 500C, the ELM of the 500CM, the ELX in '84 came out and was the 503CX was the normal camera, and the ELX, 500 ELX was the motorized version, and so on. This camera, by the way, is part of the Hasselblad system, and as I said in my video about the 500CM that you can check there, the Hasselblad system is a very modular system with a lot of things. So in '65 there was a need in theory for bird watching. I think it was much more for the space race. In fact, the EL camera went on the moon. There was the need for a camera that was possible to trigger from remote and didn't have to be advanced, and so on. So Hasselblad came out with the 500 EL in '65. That was the motorized version of the 500C. In '71 this came out. This is the ELM. Modified version was the motorized version of the 500CM. So it had the interchangeable focusing screen and so on. The future version were the ELX in '84 was the equivalent of the 503CX, that was with the TL for flash, and then in '88 the 553 ELX, there was a version with normal AA batteries, not with the Hasselblad specific batteries, and the 555 ELD in 1998 was specific for the series camera that connected with digital backs. So this is the little story of the Hasselblad. This camera is very nice, especially if you want to do something where you need a remote trigger. For example, I'm doing right now a little fun little project where I will be the subject, because it's much easier if I do it with my own face. And so in the case that is a kind of self-portraits, it's much easier to have the camera set up on the tripod and remotely trigger the camera with the trigger in my hands. So that's the thing. To trigger the camera from remote, you have a couple of options. One is to buy the cable that was originally used for the Hasselblad, that can be inserted here, and it's something like here you can change the shutter button, put it in one on the other places. It depends what you prefer when you shoot, but you can also here insert a remote cable that Hasselblad made, and that's one thing. The other thing is that you have this 6-pin input here in the camera that can be used to charge the batteries and can be used also to trigger the camera from remotely. It's very easy to build an adapter and a remote trigger for the camera, and I will probably do a video about that in the future. A little parenthesis: if you wonder why you can need a camera with the remote trigger, just check on the Hasselblad website. There's a part dedicated to history, and there's a nice article about the photograph of John Chakeres, that I hope I pronounced it correctly, and you can check the beautiful images that he made about the shuttle photographing the shuttle, and he needed to remote trigger the camera, and he did that with special triggers that were listening sounds, were working with sound or light. So when the sound of the shuttle engines came up, the camera started to take pictures, or when they saw the light made by the launch of the shuttle, the camera started to trigger. It's very nice. Check the article down there. To use this camera for normal photography, where you don't need really to trigger the camera, it's not exactly very comfortable. The camera with the batteries became very heavy, and the form factor is not really easy to manage. So if you think motorized version, so you can do, I don't know, sport or something like that, forget that. The motorized version, it goes something as a frame per second or something like that. If you do the continuous mode and you trigger this camera, it's not, you can hear that it's not really a fast camera. So I like this when I have to do something where I need to trigger my camera from remote. It can be self-portraits, as I said, or it can be with, for example, with a timer that take pictures at the same intervals, and so on. The features of this camera are pretty nice and very simple. First of all, when you get the camera, you have to remember to move the switch from L to O, that is from log to operational, and so the camera can work. There's also a T pose, so you can use the camera for very long exposures. But the camera is controlled, it's all controlled by this switch. And this switch has 5 positions. O is the normal position, so when you click the camera, it goes and recycle in normal mode, and it's what you usually use. If you want to avoid vibration or this kind of things, you can put the camera S and S, and when you put S, the switch comes back. It will open the back curtains, will raise the mirror, and preset the diaphragm, the aperture on the lens, and then when you click, it comes back to the normal status. There's the SP, that is basically the same thing, but the difference is that the camera, when you click, the camera gets back, does all the cycles and gets back to the pre-shot position. So that's very good things, because you can have always the camera ready and avoid the vibrations. So that's all. An annoying fact is that after you were in that position, when you come back to the operational position, still the mirror and everything is up. So you have to take a shot to reset everything to normal. The other position is the automatic position, that is simply a continuous mode. So if you keep the shutter pressed, the camera goes on, and as I said, 1 photogram per second. And there's the 5th position, that is AS, and AS, it's the camera rises, the mirror and everything. When you click, is a continuous mode, continuous shooting mode, but always with the mirror up. So these are the different settings that you can have with this camera. Talking about the batteries, go to check the video that I made here about battery adapters like this, and what I use and prefer in this camera. Originally, the camera came with batteries that are no more available on the market, so it's not possible to use the original batteries. And by the way, even Hasselblad in 1988 with the 553 ELX finally decided that their batteries were not the best option, so they made a camera with the AA batteries, working with AA batteries, so with a different battery adapters here. But It's very easy to find adapters on the market. You can, as I said, you can check the video here, and to use this camera. So what else can I tell you about this camera is that it's very nice because it's very cheap to find one on internet, on eBay for example. You can find a lot of these cameras for spare parts, so low price, and if you have some good repairing skills, you can usually fix them. It's not a very complex system, or better, it's very simple system on one side. It is very complex to put everything together synchronized in a perfect way so the camera will work, but it's all mechanical, it's all nice. So it's worth to buy this camera if you do something that require remote triggering of the camera. Yes, it's absolutely worth to spend the money on an Hasselblad EL series, EL or ELM and so on. If you don't do that, in my opinion, it's really a waste of time. This camera becomes really heavy with the batteries and is really bulky camera, and also it's something that can be no factor for you, but for me it's this noise is really loud. Already the Hasselblad is very loud, the 500 cm or the 500 normal non-motorized series are very loud because there's the huge mirror that flaps up and down. To this you add noise of the motor. This said, great camera, it's an Hasselblad, so it's very good camera, and it's modular. You can use the same back as all the series, same lenses and so on. By the way, I took the back off of this camera because while I was showing the different modes of shooting, the back obviously advanced, and this is an A12 back. Also, if you put an A24, is not much pictures that you have. So using the motor is very easy to arrive at the end of the film, or the non-existent film, at the end of the magazine capacity in this case. And I was there thinking, oh, the batteries are gone or something like that, and I discovered that just simply I reached the 12th pose. The ideal for this camera is to get a 70mm back and find 70mm film. So you will have really a lot of pictures. I don't know exactly how many, but I think it's a few hundred pictures with the 70mm backs, and that's the way to use this camera, because if you use it also with, I mean, a remote trigger or something like that, you have to remember you have only 12 poses, or 24 with the 220 film, but it's impossible to find right now. So basically it's 12 poses, and 12 poses a motorized camera are not exactly something that goes very well together. So this is the reason why I took off the back, and this is another reason why a motorized Hasselblad has a meaning only if you need really some specific features. This said, as I said, the Hasselblad is a part of the V series, the Hasselblad system, very modular, very beautiful. So if you want to enter the Hasselblad world on the cheaper way, this can be an option. This is all about the Hasselblad ELM. Thank you for watching, and remember, if you want to support the channel, the easiest way is just put a like, subscribe to the channel and share it with your friends. If you want to go a step further, check out my books. The link is down there in the description, and these are my technical books and my novel, or you can check my photographic books on my website. So, thank you very much for watching. See you next time with new gears and new ideas.